Hello everyone, this is Linkmus Prime, and today I'm going to be talking about what exactly happened with the release of Transformers Studio Series 102, Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime. Now before we get into it, I would like to mention that Studio Series 102 Prime is by far the best movie Prime we have to date, at least in my opinion. Well, at least for robot mode. Vehicle mode, we'll talk about that later. But the actual figure itself is just simply amazing. They took some of the things that made SS-38 good and made it even better, at least except for the... And personally, I think this is one of Hasbro's best releases by far. Well, I wish I could say the same for the release of the figure itself.
Disappointed!
To say that this was the most hectic release of a toy we've had from Hasbro so far is a complete understatement. This figure was the Popeye's chicken sandwich of Transformers. And not to mention, acquiring this figure was an absolute mess. Firstly, the figure sold out quickly, which isn't a surprise because, well, it's Optimus Prime, and it's one of the best looking Optimus Prime figures we have. But then around the time of its release, some people were getting their pre-orders canceled, whether they had ordered it from Target or Hasbro Pulse. And unfortunately, I was one of the people that fell victim to getting my pre-order canceled. Now, I've already made a video explaining exactly what happened, so I'm not going to get into it in this video, but yeah. But then, the day the figure actually got released, still, no one could find it. And I was also one of those people that couldn't find it on the day it was supposed to be released. And lots of people, including myself, also called ahead to multiple Targets, at least more than 3, 4, 5 Targets, to see if they even had this figure in stock or in back, and they always said they do, and then they never did. For some people, also including myself, we had faced the unfortunate fact that the figure was sold out before the store even opened. And I've had many people who work in retail tell me that is not how stock works. So yeah, this figure had a very hectic and by far the most confusing release of any figure I've ever heard of. Now I'm sure there's other cases where this has happened, but I'm talking specifically within the vicinity of Transformers. But we pretty much all know how the BS went, so let's take a look on the inside of what really happened. Now firstly, let's talk about the Buzzworthy Bumblebee subline. Buzzworthy Bumblebee, as we all know, is a Target-exclusive Transformers subline that basically allows certain figures that can't get a full proper release to have some form of release. Sometimes we've gotten original sculpts and releases that we wouldn't see in mainline release, mainly due to the fact that Hasbro wouldn't be able to fit it in with the other, lines, essentially. And that mostly has to do with budgeting. Now when it comes to Studio Series, it is an insanely rare case that an original Studio Series figure would be placed first in Buzzworthy before it's placed in the main line. And when I say rare, I mean it's literally only ever happened once. Well, twice now, but let's talk about that first time. This particular figure being the Deluxe Class Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Studio Series Bumblebee, which was an exclusive Buzzworthy Bumblebee release before it got the mainline release. However, this wasn't necessarily an original mold, as this was just a rehash of the 2007 Bumblebee mold we had gotten previous. And the figure itself would later go on to have a full mainline release the next year. So now that we have more context behind that, let's get back to talking about Prime. SS-102 Optimus Prime is the very first Studio Series that has an original sculpt that was placed in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee subline before it was placed in the SS mainline. But what if I told you it wasn't always like that? Right here I have a leaked listing from November of 2022 of every single Studio Series figure we'd get for 2023 for waves 1 through 4. And as you'll notice, SS-102 Prime isn't to be found in this entire listing. The only Studio Series Prime we have listed in this is the Gamer Edition War for Cybertron Optimus Prime, and that's it.
But Linkamus, it's just a leaked listing. They probably didn't know it's gonna be added.
Well, no. Of course they didn't know it was going to be added. because it wasn't originally going to be placed in Buzzworthy Bumblebee. That's right. SS-102 Optimus Prime was intended to be placed in the 2024 Studio Series lineup. Now, the reason as to why he was placed in Buzzworthy Bumblebee was mainly due to, well, a few things. The trailer was really popular. The official teaser trailer for Transformers Rise of the Beasts ended up being Paramount's most viewed teaser trailer of all time. Hasbro saw the hype for this film, and they wanted to put something out there that would help hype it up a little bit more. Now, of course, all the slots for Studio Series in terms of the Voyagers and all that stuff was already filled for Wave 1. So they decided, alright, let's place it in Wave 2. But we don't have enough copies of this figure, so let's kind of make it a exclusive release. Let's give the fans earlier access to the figure before we actually give it its main release. And so in the first quarter of 2023, SS-102 Optimus Prime was officially added to the SS lineup of this year. And fans weren't happy because of the fact that it was listed as a Buzzworthy Bumblebee release. Now, before I get into anything else, I would like to talk about an exclusivity contract. Typically, if you are a company and you have a product, but you want this product to be an exclusive to a specific store, you have to sign an agreement. Now, typically these agreements, they last a certain amount of time. Typically, these can last from 30 to 90 days, or about 3 to 4 years. And I'm just going to say this now, no, Hasbro did not sign the 3 to 4 year contract. In fact, in the past, they never have done that. When Hasbro makes an exclusive, it tends to only last a year, or less, until it gets a proper mainline release. And the reason I bring this up, on September 8th of 2023, something very unfortunate developed. It was discontinued?
What? What the f?
So yeah, a lot of people were admittedly pissed. This was a figure that barely had any time to appear on shelves. Some stores never even got it in to begin with, and it was discontinued before it was actually able to be released in stores. And even worse, Target was canceling people's pre-orders after it had been revealed to be discontinued. So what happened there exactly? I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea, but I do have theories. My top and most plausible theory, Hasbro just ran out of copies. This figure was pre-ordered to all hell on both Target and Hasbro Pulse's websites. Now I will say this, Hasbro did make a lot of copies of this figure, especially for a first-time release, because it got released in at least 3 other countries besides the United States, and these being the UK, Canada, and Singapore. And there were a lot. And I can only imagine how pressed Hasbro was to try to make sure they evenly distribute a certain amount of this figure to each of these countries, especially considering the fact that they already had the other ones to cover for online order. And this is where my point comes across. The reason why the release of this figure was a huge mess was because of us. Now, before I shift full blame onto us, the consumer, I will say this, Hasbro is still at fault for a few things in this. The main thing being that they somehow didn't know that this would be a very, very high demand popular release. How they didn't know that, I have no clue, because this is a very popular character, the most popular character in the Transformers franchise. The fact that they didn't know that the release of this was going to be simply hectic was kind of stupid on their part. But to be completely fair, they also didn't know how badly we would take this situation. Hasbro is a company. All they care about is making money. They don't really care about how they distribute their products, because we are just the consumer. To them, we give them the money that we, invest into their products. So in short, it's not Hasbro's responsibility for how we consume their products. All they
care about and all that matters is that the product is bought and that they earn money for it. Now, before you call me a shill, no, I do not support Hasbro's business practices. I'm simply pointing out the inner workings of how they think and how they do things. They are not responsible for us, the fans and consumers, because there's millions of us. And this is a company, and sure, it's a big company, but all they're responsible for doing is making the products and distributing them and making sure that the people who order and buy their products receive them. That's all they're responsible for. But to conclude everything that I said in this entire video, in short, Hasbro had good intent, but they executed it very poorly. We as fans cry too much. And lastly, just buy the KO.
Also, during the time of this recording, we just got a leak from Takara. We are getting a Masterpiece Rhinox, so that is really cool. We are also getting a Legacy Silverbolt, and I'm a huge Silverbolt fan, so let's go. And we're getting a Takara release of the SS-102 Optimus Prime. So, guys, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get your Prime some way, because it's getting a, proper... whatever. Done with this video.